Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and I have an important announcement for you guys. At the end of every single episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you might hear us shout out to our fans, one of whom is Matt Herring, who was one of the original Superhouse fans. He's always given us his support, and now it's time that we support him. We've just recently found out that Matt has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as a cancer survivor myself, I know personally that there's a lot of emotional and financial strain that comes into that. His wife, Kelly, has set up a GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt. And hopefully you can help reduce the financial strain to that, as well as some of the emotional strain that comes with that. Again, that's gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt.
Matt Herring was the first, I guess you could say, true Superhouse fan. We were Superhouse at that time. You know, the first fan of this podcast and what we do here, and has always supported us, talked about us, and he's from a town close to where I'm from, and so we share that as well, and just a huge superhero fan, and, you know, nerd like the rest of us, and now he's going through that, and if you could donate just at least any amount of money to that link that Ben just said, that would be truly appreciated. Just hang in there, Matt. You'll beat this thing soon.
Boys. I love bringing people together. Look, Clark Kent, meet Mr. Bruce Wayne. Mr. Bruce Wayne, here, meet Mr. Clark Kent of the Daily Planet.
Yes, we were getting acquainted.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, wow, that is a very strong grip there. He is very, very muscular. Have you noticed his muscular body? Bruce, I really gotta say, he's very, very well toned under that suit. I can see it myself. And you are also very muscular. Did you notice that, Mr. Kent? They are both very muscular people. You would think that they might be good fighters. You should not get in a fight with this person.
I'm just a normal guy that worked on the farm. That's it. So there you go about me. About this guy, I don't know. You do look like you do CrossFit or something.
Well, it's because I like girls, so it helps.
He's very masculine man. Masculine. Can you hear me, Clark? Can you believe that? He's very masculine.
I think he heard you the first time.
About mass, that is interesting. You know, now that you mention it, there might be something going on there, Lex. You are kind of the smart guy.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Oh, well, I did think it was quite odd that, Clark, you did not know who Bruce Wayne was. You know, he is a celebrity, and Gotham City is right across the street from Metropolis. Are you some kind of alien or something? Huh, Clark? Are you some sort of alien? Not from this planet?
How dare you call people from the countryside aliens? I might not be as sophisticated as you city folk, but we just don't have word of Gotham billionaires make it all the way to Kansas.
Lex does seem to be right, though. That is a little strange. And also, you seem kind of familiar once I look past the glasses.
Oh, you see that?
I just have one of those faces. Your face, however, if I cover up half of it, there's just something going on there.
You see that? I'm starting to put it together. Now, Clark, did you know that Bruce actually likes to partake in many nocturnal activities, much like a nocturnal mammal? I'm trying to think right now. Maybe he's a fan of certain sports to do with balls. Can you believe that, Clark? Maybe something with a bat. Nocturnal activities. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So you're saying he's Batman?
Hey, I didn't say that. You put those words in my mouth, Clark. I never said such a thing.
And you're saying he's Superman.
Totally not true. Have you seen these glasses?
Clark, let's face it, you're just Superman wearing glasses. So Lex somehow...
Superman does not wear glasses. So, there you go.
Here, let me put there's not even any prescription in these. Come on, Clark.
It's a weak prescription, but I need them to read, and I like to read my phone all the time, and so I just keep them on.
Clark.
Explanation right there, fellas.
Hold on a second. He's gone. Usually I do that.
Yeah, that's weird. I was looking at your pecs, and then all of a sudden I turn around and he's gone. And There is a jar of pee just right there. And was he peeing the whole time he was talking to us?
It appears to be his calling card.
Calling who, though? I mean, it's just fucking weird. It doesn't make any sense in any story, really. I mean,
If you think about it, it's a pretty bad calling card. I mean, it's pretty easy to identify DNA from this if I take this to the Batcave.
I mean, call me via my piss. When I pee, I want you to call me. This makes no sense.
Well, Lex likes to think that he's more intellectual than most people, so maybe he's just doing this to distract us from the fact that
His pee is smarter than the rest of us or something?
maybe that's what he thinks.
This is dumb.
Anyways, you want to team up and just take Lex Luthor down and just grab a coffee?
Sounds great. I think he's not far because I can kind of see him right now. So
We'll follow the droplets of urine, Clark.
I'm going to take this urine and pour it on him.
I was just going to brand him, but sure, you can do that.
Peach tea strikes again.
Alright, welcome back to the discussion on the most controversial superhero movie of all time, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. It is us at Superhero Stuff You Should Know, brought to you by Superhouse with BVS Snyder Vs. Critics. So it is I, the man who knows too much about Batman, wearing my Batfleck outfit, and with me are...
Hey everybody, it's Andrew. What's going on? I don't have like a crazy intro this time around, but greetings, y'all.
And joining us again is our guest host, Zach Brown.
Yep, it's me. It's Zach. I'm back again, ready to smile and nod and approve of what you both say.
That's exactly why we bring him here.
We need a hype man. He's a hype man.
So our favorite hype man is here, and we are going to continue our discussion with BVS. So for those who don't know, we have been doing our whole series from Man of Steel onto this moment, where we cover the sort of popular fan criticisms of the Zack Snyder movies, go into Snyder's intentions as brought to us by commentary, Vero posts, interviews, all of the like, and then after examining both, go with which one we side with on there, whether it's critics or with Snyder. For now, it's Snyder 5, critics 12, but I'm going to add a few things in here. We may give automatic points for things that we really, really like on here. Things
Is
that
anybody big not Snyder related on Vero?
I don't think so.
Is there a single soul? Like that's the Snyder Facebook.
I did not know
basically.
what Vero was until he was on there talking.
He's
to
the
people
only
on
one talking about it, but he's still on there. It's still a big
Yeah.
thing.
It's his thing, really. That's the place
Yeah.
to go to talk about it.
It's fine, but it's
Mhm.
I don't know why he doesn't like other. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. He's got his own reasons.
Oh well.
I still don't know what Vero is.
It's like an Instagram, but it's its own deal. You know, it's like an Instagram social media service.
And it's partially why we got the Snyder Cut. He showed a whole bunch of previews of the stuff that he had in mind for Justice League, and now we're getting the cut in March. So, as I said before, we got Snyder 5, critics 12, but don't think that's going to be a landslide. There's still plenty for us to go into because we left off with the Senate explosion last time. We'll go a little bit more into it, but first I want to do a quick sort of corrections department as well as addressing some stuff that came up last time. So you guys were right. Bruce Wayne is in Metropolis, not in Gotham in the beginning of this when he is trying to help out, and he jumps off the helicopter and tries to help out over there, which means the fight in Man of Steel is still in Metropolis. I know I said in the Man of Steel thing, it's partially in Gotham. It's not. It's just confusing because Snyder came up with the idea of Metropolis and Gotham both sort of being next to each other.
They've never been that close before, right? In the comics,
I don't think so. I don't like Bruce has to take a plane to get to Metropolis in the world's finest
right.
three-parter in the DCAU. So
it's generally like
doesn't have to
Gotham
do
is
that.
maybe somewhere in New Jersey.
yeah,
But it's still like at least an hour drive from Metropolis.
whereas Metropolis, I think, is supposed to be Cleveland.
Cleveland, really?
Based off of where Siegel and Schuster grew up in.
I've also heard Vancouver because one of them was born in Vancouver. Did you know that?
Right, but then you go into is Metropolis in Canada then?
No, it's not in Canada, but it's
Okay.
well, not geographic location, but overall look and vibe.
I see.
I guess
I see.
there was some sort of influence on Metropolis from Vancouver because he was
Gotcha.
born there. People in Canada have a Superman coin. Canada claims Superman to a certain degree because of this fact.
So he's not a Christian American. He's a Jewish Canadian, is what you're
Yes,
telling me.
that is correct. Yes.
All the things we learned here on superhero stuff you should know.
Yes.
What if
Jewish
Red
Canadian.
Sun was Canadian Superman instead of Russian Superman?
It's the same thing, but he ends every sentence in A.
Superman, Maple Leaf. Coming
That's
to you
right,
soon
Red
from
Maple.
Mark Miller.
He loves hockey instead of football. We might need Kooky Noms to come in for this one.
I know, right? Jonathan Kent's like, you can't show off at the hockey rink.
Yeah.
Sorry. So another thing that I've seen is discussion on the first part we talked about how like maybe it should have been Lucius instead of Jack O'Dwyer, but also saying that we didn't like how Jimmy Olsen was killed off. Some fans have brought up that this is hypocritical because we wanted
It's
not
Morgan
necessarily-
Freeman's. It's Morgan Freeman's Lucius saying this is wrong,
This
and then he
is
gets
wrong.
blown up.
Bruce, I'm staying here. So
Leaving this building.
I'm
is
gonna get
wrong.
busy dying.
Lucius.
So I think this is okay. So I'm seeing this online. This is before we actually launched the episode, so I do not know yet if people in the comment section are going to go after us for being hypocritical and saying that Lucius should have died in the tower, but they shouldn't have killed Jimmy Olsen this way. This is false equivalency in my mind because there's a reason why we said both. We said Lucius should have been there instead of Jack because Lucius is a well-known character connected to Wayne Enterprises, a beloved character from the Dark Knight trilogy, so it would make the necessary emotional impact on us as much as on Bruce while watching that because we know who that is. Similar thing to if they ever killed Alfred. Even if you met that version of Alfred for like 5 seconds, it wouldn't have as much impact as if he was in 5 movies, but you would still have some impact because you know who that character is supposed to be.
Right.
That's why that works. For Jimmy Olsen, the CIA agent does not have to be Jimmy Olsen. Lucius Fox, we think it's natural because he's connected to Wayne Enterprises, but the CIA agent could be anybody going undercover. In the theatrical version, we just thought he was some random dude who got shot who was just a bad CIA agent. He could be anybody. Also, Superman and Lois have no relationship to him whatsoever. There's no emotional impact to his death, and there's not supposed to be an emotional impact to his death on either Superman or Lois. Superman doesn't even meet him
Okay.
in this. So I'm calling false equivalency on people calling that out. That is why I think Lucius dying in the tower would have worked better. But then I also said in that episode that doesn't necessarily have to be Lucius. What you just need is planting that guy at the funeral so that we know that connection and can feel that emotional connection when he dies in the tower.
Okay. Oh, what I have for my crazy intro, but that's not so
Go ahead.
crazy. One of the things I thought was, sorry, this is going on a tangent, but once again, it's what I do. But there's a lot of Polaroids in this movie, right? There's like, how many people use Polaroids anymore? I noticed that.
Lex does.
Lex is a multi-billionaire, doesn't use his phone. He just has Polaroids that he gives to people.
If you think about it, like he doesn't want a digital trace of all this stuff. At least with the Martha Kent kidnapping.
I know. I just thought it's just like another nitty gritty thing I noticed. It's just I don't know. I think it's a visual that Snyder. It's better visual to have somebody holding something.
Oh yeah,
than,
when he's
than a phone,
throwing
I guess.
when he's throwing the Polaroids to Clark on the rooftop versus if he's just like, here's my phone.
That's true. That's true. Polaroids are like, especially like have like a crime scene vibe. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people that grew up in the '90s especially kind of have that. So yeah, like a shot of his mother being fucked up is like a crime
Right.
scene kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
More
Snyder.
miserable details from us on this podcast.
All
Could have
right,
had
well,
a picture of the jar of pee whenever he had it on his phone. He might have accidentally flipped to something else.
I'm gonna give her this.
Message Polaroids.
it's his wallpaper on there. He looks at it with some glee
Yeah.
because he's so proud of himself for filling up that jar. So we left off on the jar of pee last time, but let's start with our opening tidbit. So Holly Hunter plays Senator Finch, and that is actually the same name as a senator in Batman the Animated Series. In Batman the
Really?
Animated Series, there's an episode called Be a Clown where a male Senator Finch arrives at the birthday of Hamilton Hill's son, the same birthday party where the Joker crashes.
And was she
So-
also in Smallville?
In Smallville? Oh, no.
Everybody's in fucking Smallville. Was Holly Hunter in Smallville?
Holly Hunter wasn't Small. No, she was not in
God
Smallville. She was not. But I would not have been surprised if I look back and be like, oh yeah, she was in that one episode.
She was somebody's left foot.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk a bit about the Senate explosion then for Snyder versus Critics, because we went into the jar of pee. We didn't really go into some of the other aspects that were sort of criticized overall of this scene. I think the biggest thing that was criticized was how it ties into Superman's betrayal here.
Okay.
So they sort of criticized how Superman is kind of just standing around and moping about. He doesn't have any lines in the entire DC sequence. If you link back at it, there's not a single line of dialogue.
Oh, I remember, because
is
I
said
wanted
with
to
it.
hear him say some shit. I was like, this is gonna be really interesting. It about opens his mouth and boom.
Yeah.
It's
In
just
fact,
like, with just
yeah.
more shots of his dour ass face.
on Twitter or somewhere online, they actually counted how many lines of dialogue that Cavill has in the whole movie. And I believe it was low. It was like 40 lines or something like that. I might be wrong on that. But it was basically people were criticizing just how few lines of dialogue Superman had the whole time.
There's not many.
And it's especially relevant when it comes to this sequence because he doesn't say anything at the Senate. The place blows up. If you watch the Ultimate Edition, there's a very, it's a nice addition to see him carry out the survivors. And he just doesn't say anything either at that point. Snyder fans cynically Photoshop him smiling in the fire to quote unquote give the Superman fans or give the critics what they want. Because apparently all the criticisms of Superman's betrayal of these movies can be summed up to the fact he doesn't smile enough. But the intention of Superman in the fire was to sort of show Superman, quote, in anguish over the fact that this is the lowest of humanity that he's seen. And contrast that with the shot of Ben Affleck, like looking up, enraged, and show that Superman is in anguish over seeing the lowest of humanity, whereas Bruce is enraged by it, which I think is a cool parallel on here. But anyway, to dial this down to critics versus Snyder, critics would say that the Senate scene was a big opportunity for Superman to at least put his stamp on something, to say something, but he says nothing. He doesn't even say anything to the paramedics, whereas Snyder would say that maybe that's the point. So, where do you stand on this? As usual, we'll start with Zach.
Oh boy, so this is something that I think me and Andrew are going to agree on. I really think that scene would have been a lot more powerful if we actually got to hear what Superman says and then everything blows up. And then that would have made us feel like, as an audience, we would have known what his feelings were about everything up until now. We would have gotten his perspective. And then it was all for nothing because all the people that he spoke to in the room just died. So at least we would have gotten that information, but it would have been even more tragic that nobody knows still. Like all that stuff was just heard from our perspective as an audience, and everyone else in the film that heard it is dead. So I feel like, that would have been a lot more powerful if he had some dialogue and said what he needed to say as far as his feelings go on, how people view him and what his opinions are.
Andrew?
I find myself in that of 100% agreeance with Zach. It was bad. I mean, there's like not many lines, like you said. It just bugs me. I was really looking forward to Superman on trial. What will he say? What will happen?
Your Superman cereal as you watch the speech.
I can't wait for this. And then it just blows up. I remember being in the theater taken aback, like, what? What are we getting right now? Like, is it like the Frank Miller thing? Like, Frank Miller's on record for not really liking Superman, right? Like, I think that Snyder's such a Miller fan, he doesn't. But then again, he seems to like Superman too. I don't know. It's just like, it's just not done right.
Miller still wrote a very unique Superman origin in Superman Year One. I read it recently on that. I think part of that was to try to hit back at critics saying that he isn't a fan of Superman just because he has Batman beat the shit out of him in a few things. But I would say Frank Miller is a Superman fan. It's just when you're writing a Batman comic and he's up against Superman, you can't have Batman get his ass kicked.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I know. It just seems like, I don't know. I just wanted to hear him talk and just to have another scene with Henry Cavill just like having a dour face, everybody died around me. I'm sad. I don't know. I mean, of course you would be sad, but it's just
all around me are familiar faces.
too. I found it too much. It was a bit too much. So critics for me.
I, again, 100% agree with you guys, and it's not necessarily because we need to see Superman make speeches so much as the fact that it sets up the drama of that. Like, if the whole thing is about him losing faith in humanity, if seeing the worst of humanity, we should see him having hope for humanity before that explosion. We should see some sense of hope.
True.
Instead, again, as Andrew said, he's been dour this whole time. So the explosion kind of doesn't really have the same dramatic impact that Snyder was talking about. I didn't really, I saw maybe the contrast between Superman being sad in the courtroom versus Batfleck being pissed off, but I didn't necessarily see that as this is the worst of humanity, I'm now going to go off in exile sort of thing. And I didn't necessarily feel that in an emotional level. And I think if I were to dial it down, if Snyder's biggest weakness storytelling-wise, from what we've been talking about with Man of Steel and leading up to this, is that he's missing half of the equation. So a lot of times there's a setup and there's a payoff in order for there to be an emotional thing. And we see this a lot in the Nolan trilogy. Right, the setup in Batman Begins is how often Ra's al Ghul is like, you never learn to mind your surroundings. And then at the end, Batman turns that on him and he says, you never learned to mind your surroundings. Then we as the audience feel satisfied. That's just a general example. The problem is, what if you don't have the setup? And at the end, Batman's just randomly to Ra's al Ghul, you never learned to mind your surroundings. And the whole point is he flips it on his teacher. I'm like, well, I get it, but we didn't know that was a thing on there. It lacks the emotional impact. So if you don't have the setup of how much he thinks that this courtroom hearing is going to be a big step forward towards his relationship with humanity, or how much he is already hopeless, but he believes he can get through to them. And then, as Zack says, he does get through to them, and then they all die. Something like that. What you're missing is the gut punch. We got the shock of it because none of us were expecting Scoot to explode, but we didn't get the sadness from it. Again, shock, but no sadness, because there wasn't the setup for what we were supposed to be hoping for at the moment, other than just Superman talking to us.
Right.
But if there's a sense of hope, or a sense of maybe he'll get through, maybe he is going to have an easier time, and then it gets blown up, then that's going to be a gut punch, and that's what you're going for on air. So another thing is that I always thought the Senate explosion muddled things, because then I'm just Lex doesn't necessarily frame him for blowing the place up, because at first that's what I thought. I was like, oh, Lex totally framed him for using his heat vision and killing everybody there. But then almost immediately the news reports say it's a suicide bombing. So that it's just so people are pissed at him because he didn't stop the bombing from a guy who hated him. It muddles it in a way, because it's just people hate him because he didn't really they think that he enabled it. He was teaming up with the guy, even though the guy was a known critic of him. It muddles it, as opposed to just straight out framing him on air. Lex, as opposed to the beginning where he does try to frame him for the Africa stuff, but again, that was muddled because of the whole bullets thing and the fact that we didn't really need it.
The more I think about that, the more I don't like it. The whole Africa bullet thing.
Right.
I thought there was something I was just missing, and I thought it was me, but it really is the movie. It's just not something not right there.
Okay, so Snyder 5, Critics 13 on here.
God damn, it's gonna be a landslide. Sorry, Snyder.
I have a few surprises in here.
Okay, good.
Anyway, all right, on to the next tidbit. We talked last time. We already gave minus points to Snyder for killing off Mercy in a way that didn't seem like it was properly motivated, because again, it seems like if he's going to cover that up, why didn't he kill the KGB guys? Not KGB guys, the KG Beast and his minions and stuff. Mercy's the only one he kills, even though all of them are in on the same plan.
Right.
At first, I thought this was a very weird version of Mercy until I dug deeper, and I found that there are some predecessors to this type of Mercy. Because I'm used to the one in the animated series, of course, who's the chauffeur / bodyguard. However, a somewhat mute Mercy, which is the one that Tao Okamoto plays, because she only has really one line when she asks Bruce, when he's in the server room, if he needs any help. But a somewhat mute Mercy is in the Young Justice animated series. Lex sacrificing and killing Mercy to cover stuff up is in the animated movie Superman Doomsday. So there's that.
Oh, shit. I forgot about that.
Mercy being Asian is also, this is not the first time Mercy has been Asian. She was Asian in the TV show The Batman, voiced by an Asian actress, Gwendolyn Yao. So there's that.
Oh, shit. All right.
And they reimagined Mercy to be Asian in the New 52 before Batman vs. Superman came out. So the casting of Tao Okamoto actually does fit with the New 52 version. However, I do have to say it is a missed opportunity because Mercy, as we talked about in our No Man's Land deep dive, is pretty much this badass who is implied to have Amazonian roots. So imagine the fight with Wonder Woman on that, or the potential ties of that.
Zuckerberg's wife, also Chinese. Lex's bodyguard / secretary, whatever she is, also Asian. She's Japanese in real life, but connections abound, guys.
Somebody check on Mark Zuckerberg, make sure he's not filling up a jar full of pee.
Yeah.
He's got lots of jars at his house. I know.
Okay. Next, Snyder versus Critics. When we see Ben Affleck's Bruce get pissed off, it's from a message that says, "You let your family die," which Lex sort of implies later on was not actually from Wallace Keith, but actually from Lex himself to sort of manipulate him. This sort of led into a big debate, though, because from Snyder's perspective, Batman is not super heroic. He doesn't trust people, and that sort of makes him more easily manipulated. However, critics would say that the world's greatest detective, it would take a lot more to trick him than a bunch of messages drawn in crayon, supposedly by Wallace Keith on here.
He's fighting a hangover the whole movie, though. So
The opioids.
yeah, the opioids also. So
Again, we
he's
didn't know
seeing
he
shit
was...
from. He doesn't know if it's a fever dream from the opioids or fucking dark side. He doesn't know what the fuck.
Again, as we'd established, we didn't know that was he had those addictions until we read that Snyder quote on there. But yeah, Batman himself does zero investigating of the Congress incident for something that pisses him off so much. He just sees it and then he just goes off to steal the kryptonite from Lex Luthor. We don't actually see him investigate to find out what happened. It's Lois who investigates what happens. In fact, he doesn't actually do, in revisiting the movie, he doesn't actually do any detective work on Superman himself. We never really see him figure out that Superman is Clark Kent, anything to do with the spaceship. The only detective work he does really in the movie is tracking the kryptonite from the White Portuguese. But we don't actually see actual detective work applied to Superman other than the fact that he knows that kryptonite is going to weaken him and he plots the whole fight for him. And
basically it, yes.
Yeah.
Also, these notes, what does it say again that when he's reading them? I know who killed your family. What is it?
You let your family die.
Yeah.
And that is to Batman.
To Batman, yeah.
And who was supposed to have written that?
Scoot.
Scoot wrote that.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's actually Lex.
So
that Lex
Pretending.
would... Yes, pretending to be Wallace Keith so that Bruce would be
who
pissed
was
off.
Wallace Keith again?
At Scoot.
Oh, okay. Scoot in the wheelchair.
The Snyder fans are screaming at us.
I'm sorry. Okay.
They're like, you guys can't criticize this if you don't know the character names.
Look, I'm learning with the audience. I'm sorry. Okay, so... Okay. And
it is.
Right,
I can't blame you though. It is complicated because Lex pretends to be Scoot, writes the message to Bruce Wayne, "You let your family die," to have a connection between, I guess, Bruce enabling Wayne employees to get killed off by Superman's fight with Zod and relating that to Bruce's trauma with his parents, and
yeah, what does "let your family die" supposed to mean exactly?
Relying on the fact that Bruce will blame Superman on that when he sees the congressional. It's very muddled. In my opinion. But yeah, it's
I don't
supposed
get
to,
this element. I feel like an idiot, but I don't. Am I wrong? Like
he's basically. I think he's trying to pretend to be Scoot, saying, "You let your family die," as in like you let us down, us, your family, part of the business, part of the Wayne Tower, who were victims of the Superman Zod fight. But it's worded that way to go off of Bruce's survivor's guilt with his parents. You let your family die.
That Scoot doesn't know.
From
That's famous info in the storyline. Yeah. Okay.
It's famous enough info that he would know that. But I would say I'm like, okay, I get that Lex is trying to poke the bear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like a very complicated way to blame that on Superman. because
Yeah,
really,
he feels more survivor's guilt, so that makes him more angry against Superman. Is that the thinking?
I think that's what. And then he sees Congress blow up and connects that, and decides to go get the kryptonite from Lex to kill Superman with that.
It's overthought in the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you're thinking deeply about it, but you can overthink in the wrong way. Overthinking is a good thing. Sometimes everybody's like, well, you thought too much, especially people in the South, right, Zach? People say that shit a lot.
Yeah.
That's what you get for thinking. People say shit like that. But my personal opinion is you can overthink in a good way, but this is not. I'm sorry, Snyder, but it's just not one of those times.
The only time Bruce really references the Battle of Metropolis is in that Alfred scene where he's like, look how many, died back then, type of thing. But
right.
It's not like it's almost as if they decided we needed the Battle of Metropolis plus all these other things just to push Bruce in the direction of killing Superman, which I kind of get it, but it's so muddled because the Africa stuff he doesn't even investigate. The Nightmare Vision comes out of nowhere, and the Congress explosion is more about like, did Superman fail to prevent it versus did Superman flat out kill Congress? So anyway, Snyder versus Critics on this. Let's hear from you guys in terms of, I think I know what this is going to be considering how confused we've been. But Zach, what are your thoughts on You Let Your Family Die and Bruce being possibly too easily manipulated?
I'm going to give that one to the critics. I mean, this Bruce is like going off a 1% certainties of this in this stage. I get that it's supposed to be, Snyder's version of Batman, but this Batman, like we said, he should be like the world's greatest detective. He should be, he is a skeptic. He should be skeptical of any thing that he receives, especially something like that. He should have just thought like, did Scoot really send this, or something like that.
This character will be known as Scoot from now on.
Yeah, Scoot.
Yes.
What a name.
Okay, Andrew. I think we already know what it's going to be.
Critics, yeah. This is just, it's just overly complex and not easily understood, and yeah, you don't know. You think, is the Joker writing this shit at first? Is the Joker in this fucking movie?
There was a fan theory about that too. Yeah,
Lex,
when that was in the trailer.
Right? And Lex is like making this guy write it, and then who the fuck is the family? And like Zach said, the last one or two is like, if somebody like me doesn't get it, like you said with the Flash thing,
yeah,
right.
Like that's a problem. It's a real problem. So it's just way confusing. And on top of the fact of what you guys said about Batman not being a good detective about all this thing, and I know he's under the influence half the time in this movie probably, but still though, it's not great. It's overly complex, just like the Africa thing. Overly complex and doesn't make any sense at the end of the day.
I'm with you on that. I think I've already got into it. I'm like, we didn't need this particular sequence of events is too muddled for us to believably think that he's going to do that in here. If Bruce investigates the Congress incident and Lex manipulates the evidence to make it look like Superman blew the place up, that would be more understandable because Lex manipulates the evidence. It's a cat and mouse game or chess game between Bruce and Lex. But the thing is, we don't see any investigation whatsoever. It's literally, I see this note, must kill Superman. That's literally what we see on screen. And again, I think one of the big purposes for this series that why I wanted to do this was to say, like, yes, we understand, or at least when it comes to this part, I understood Snyder's intentions when I get where he was going with the whole you let your family guy, but I still don't think it was the best way to execute that because it's too muddled. It's too muddled in what does this mean and how is that supposed to connect to Superman and how does that connect to Batman, using that to push Batman to go after Superman and not even like look further into what the hell happened at Congress. You would think absolutely that Batman would want to investigate that. It's cool that we get Lois Lane investigating. At least somebody's like doing her job right in this movie. out of the heroes, if anything, she and Wonder Woman are the ones who don't do anything wrong in this whole thing. But in the case of this one, I'm like, I get it. I just wish that it was done in a less muddled way where probably even a more intriguing way, like it would be so much more impressive if Lex Luthor tricked the world's greatest detective through manipulating evidence, through outthinking Bruce, rather than just poking the bear with a few, notes that Bruce is supposed to believe comes from Scoot. So, anyways.
He's so easily manipulated in this movie.
Yeah,
Lex just has him around his finger, man.
Yep. But I still have my Batfleck outfit on, so we'll just keep
Well, it's a great suit.
It is a great suit. All right, next tidbit is that once Lex blows up Congress, he decides to start making Doomsday. So he goes into the Kryptonian ship, and the voice of the ship is none other than Carla Gugino from the previous movie, who played Keelix. So
was this extended a lot from the theatrical version? These scenes?
I don't think those scenes with the Kryptonian ship. I don't remember anything new in the
I guess
Ultimate
I just
Edition.
totally forgot what the fuck happened there. Because again, for the audience, I saw this in the theater once years ago. Was it 2 or 3 years at this point? And then that was theatrical, of course. And then the Ultimate Edition on HBO Max when we started doing this series. So some things in my memory are not 100%. Anyway, continue, Ben.
So I decided, since we've got Critics 14, Snyder 5, we should every now and then do some automatic points for Snyder, because I feel like we're in agreement for stuff. So one automatic point is probably the most controversial casting of this movie was Ben Affleck as Batman. People were going off the rails on this, and yet I would say he's probably got the best performance out of the main leads in this movie.
That is true. Zach, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I very much agree. I just because I think I was one of those people when I heard Ben Affleck, I was like, huh? I didn't immediately think he was going to be terrible, but I was just kind of thinking that was a strange choice. I believe it was Josh Brolin was being touted as like the leading choice for a while, and I got really excited about that. So when I heard Ben Affleck, I was just like, kind of came out of nowhere, but. No, he really did a fantastic job. I wish that, some of the characterization could have been a little bit more accurate to the comics, but I wish we could have seen like him do more with that character and not be disrespected like he was in the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League.
Right. Andrew?
I've always liked Batfleck. It was announced on my birthday that he was going to be Batman that year, so it was just like I felt cosmically linked to Batfleck. It's people like hated that decision so much, and I wonder why. My main personal theory is he's just too famous, and takes people out of the movie. I think like people would rather have an unknown, I guess, and the fact that people didn't like Daredevil is probably another big one. But
I mean, it's almost like they forgot that he was doing Gone Girl and The Town and Argo and Oscar material at that point.
He was doing great shit, and I don't know. I mean, it looks great in the suit. He looks big as fuck. He's like 6'4", right?
I think so. Yeah, he's taller than Cavill.
He's taller than Cowl, which is great. That's a good dynamic. And I mean, in those workout scenes, he's fucking humongous, dude. He's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
And I mean, goddamn. Okay, so that's points for that, and then forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, Ben, but also points for the fucking suit. Like we I know, Ben, you've said before on the podcast that it's the best Batman suit on film, and I think I'd have to agree. I mean, shit, it's a gray and black, and it's got the fat bat on it, and it's great.
Yep. Zach, anything to add on the suit?
No, I think it's fantastic. I'm not going to say it's the best one because, I still like Michael Keaton's suit over all the others. I think it's just nostalgic. But as far as a comic book accurate suit, I just feel like I was so excited when I found out they were using gray. I was like, what? They're not just going to make it all black like every other Batman suit? I just thought, like, what an innovative idea. They finally have made it the color that it is in the comics. I know a lot of people were really hoping it had some blue in it too. I think that actually could have been cool if they, continued on with this character, just doing subtle changes to the costume. But yeah, the costume looks fantastic, and I can't argue with that. That just looks so good. The cowl, to me, I really like it. Other than the length of the ears, it reminds me a lot of the Alex Ross cowl, like the way that he paints Batman. It's like there is a an expression carved into the mask that looks organic. So there's like eyebrows and forehead wrinkles. It's not as sculptural and abstract or deco looking as like the other cowls that have come before it. So yeah, I really like the way it looks. Looks aggressive.
Yeah. No,
Oh
definitely.
yeah, good. That's a good word for that. Yeah.
So that's 2 automatic points for Snyder on both Affleck
2.
and the costume. I was
Coming
always
up.
a believer. I felt that people gave him too much of a bad rap when it was announced. To me, it made sense because I'm just like, oh, I just didn't think about it at the time because I just didn't think he would do it because of Daredevil. But I was also like, the problem with the Daredevil movie wasn't him. He was fine as Daredevil. In fact, I remember watching
It's
it.
hardly
being
ever
just
the
like,
actors.
Yeah. I remember watching it being just like, he wouldn't be bad as Batman if he just did the same thing in it. But again, like most of the problems with that movie have nothing to do with him. Similar thing with this one, where a majority of the stuff that would be issues with the movies that he's in as Batman don't have anything to do with his own performance. I thought he was fine. He's a physical fit for it. Even if you look at some of the old comics, you look back and you're just like, oh, that does actually kind of look like Affleck, just in general. Not just the fact that he's brunette with a square jaw looking, but some of the expressions and stuff kind of look like that. And then, of course, when the suit came out, I was always way back when Watchmen came out, and I saw Patrick Wilson's Night Owl outfit. I was just like, okay, I'd really like whoever did that to do a Batman suit, and that was Michael Wilkinson, who did do this suit. So it was really a dream come true to see Snyder and Wilkinson do this suit to show that you can do a black and gray suit and bring that to life and do it in a way where Batman looks intimidating and make him literally look like he's the on-screen comic book Batman at the same time.
Were there
And
any
I think that
cowl
was great.
problems with this?
If there were, I haven't heard any.
It seemed like it was pretty well made cowl. Like I don't know. I didn't see any like weird head turn issues in it.
No, I mean, I think when you've made Batman movies for this long, you kind of perfect it along the way anyway. So
yeah.
I was always a big proponent about how I didn't like that I didn't necessarily like the direction of the Nolan movies bat suit. In fact, I said I hated it during The Dark Knight.
You said it was a black shoe. You said
It is
like
a black
shoe.
It is a black tennis shoe that he's wearing with the abs.
I will never forget that wording.
it
I
is
didn't
a
know you
black
hated
shoe.
the suit. I didn't until we were recording. I had no idea.
Yeah. Notice I don't have a Halloween costume of the Nolan Batsuit or a statue or an action figure of it. I'm not like outright boycotting it. I've just never thought to buy any merchandise of it because I just don't like the design of it. I think it just looks ugly on it. It doesn't look like Batman.
Savage.
Yeah.
Man, you're gonna people.
Ugly suit.
Fucking piece
But
of
this one,
shit.
I'm just like, this is exactly what I'd wanted. Maybe wish the ears were a little longer, but other than that, I was like, no, this is legit. When the first, people made fun of the, sad Batman picture when it first came out, but I was just more relieved. I was like, oh, thank God they're not doing yet another, armored tennis shoe type of look. They're actually legit going off the comics. And I had faith that Snyder was going to do that because I felt his Superman suit was, a good representation of what was in the comics. And I knew that he was such a big fan of The Dark Knight Returns, that we were more than likely getting a Dark Knight Returns type of suit. And that's what we got. And I'm grateful for it. I still think it's the best.
Ben
It's
and
awesome.
Andrew, how do you feel about the way the cowl looks in Justice League?
I'm personally not I feel like I don't really have the eye to catch minor differences. So for me, like, I know that there's differences between the Superman suits in Man of Steel and BVS. I just honestly don't really notice them unless you point out to me, like, the belt's different. Similar thing with Justice League. I know that he's wearing a different suit, but this is before the tactical suit at the end where he's got the goggles and stuff. But I know he's wearing a slightly different suit that's been modified. But I don't think I really noticed that much in terms of design differences. To me, it feels the same.
I gotta say, I didn't even know it was a fucking different suit, to be honest with you. I represent all of the basic bats out there with this one.
I don't like it. There is something about the ears, the way that they carve them, they're angled back more, and it looks a little too much like Night Owl from the Watchmen series. And I don't know, it's something about the silhouette when his head is turned to the side, especially if you see those original posters, or it's like Unite the Seven posters. And he's turned to the side. It's a really cool image, but the way they have like sculpted the ears to where they're like angled back, almost like an irritated cat. It's something about him. I really don't like it. And his the eyebrows and stuff are a little bit different too. Something about the way everything is sculpted is just a little bit different. I didn't like it as much, but it's super subtle. But I don't like the silhouette of his ears from the side.
That's a major difference. Is there any other differences with it?
His
gray is
slightly darker.
What's a little darker?
The gray of the suit is slightly darker. I know in that film, and then of course like the tactical suit at the end. But yeah, it's very, very minor differences. But it's something about the cowl. I wish they had just left it alone. It looks so good in this movie.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I did not notice that.
I didn't either, but I figured that Zach would have the eye for that more than I would. On that, but let's see. That does give 2 extra points to Snyder, so that's Snyder 7, Critics 14. Snyder's catching up.
FNAF.
For now.
Catching up.
Let's see. Next tidbit. We also see there's this workout scene that Andrew pointed out, and then afterwards he goes back to the computer and he sees the photo of Wonder Woman, and we hear the Wonder Woman theme for the first time. Now, originally, there was going to be a different photograph in there. It was going to be a photograph of her at the Crimean War, which hit Twitter earlier this year that was super controversial because it had her holding like 3 heads of the soldiers she killed during the Crimean War. This was obviously completely replaced by what Patty Jenkins did with World War I and Chris Pine. So we aren't even going to do a Snyder versus Critics thing because it wasn't even part of the movie. However, if you guys are interested to hear our thoughts on that, we have a Patreon episode for those who are part of the $5 tier called Should Wonder Woman Kill? We do a deep dive into why it was the Crimean War, the history of Wonder Woman beheading people, and whether or not that actually matches up with the picture that we saw. So our issues of it, and as well as our other things, were just like, what do we not have a problem with on that? So check that out if you guys are interested on there. Last Snyder versus Critics thing before the break is Clark's sort of journey of solitude. So we have Clark telling Lois that, Superman was just a sort of a failed dream from a farmer from Kansas. And then he goes up into the mountains where he ends up meeting Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner is back in this. And Jonathan Kent gives him a sort of this anecdote about a time where sort of basically exemplifying how the right thing can have a tragic result on it. And sometimes, you don't always get rewarded for doing the right thing. Critics would say that this felt random, that the Clark would never really give up on humanity this quickly, and the whole sequence just kind of felt, again, added to the dour nature of this version of Superman. However, Snyder's intentions was basically that Clark goes up to seek solitude to try to regain his humanity, to try to find some semblance of hope somewhere. In fact, he goes up north in the snow to seek, specifically, solitude. In a way, according to Snyder, this sequence is a symbolic version of the Fortress of Solitude for Superman, for him to go up here and sort of reconnect with his memories of his father and reconnect with what he stands for. Sure, people think that the scout ship from Man of Steel was a version of the Fortress of Solitude, since AI Jor-El was there and it had Kryptonian stuff, but that thing got sent to the Phantom Zone with Faora and Chris Maloney in the last movie. So this is almost a replacement of the Fortress of Solitude. And then, of course, there's the tidbit that Jonathan brings up, that what gave him that faith in the world, the connection to humanity, was meeting Martha, and that, quote, she was my world, which is exactly what Clark says to Lois, and Lois is apparently Clark's connection to humanity, as we see in the Nightmare Vision and the Future Justice League, where her death would lead Superman to succumb to the anti-life equation. So, anyway, back to the whole Clark's journey of solitude. Where do you stand on this? Did you feel that Snyder conveyed that hope for humanity, or did you just find that it was random?
Oh, I thought it was just fine. I didn't think about the fact that it is kind of the same emotional beat of him speaking to a father figure until you just mentioned Jor-El's hologram, basically, from Man of Steel. So
true, yeah.
It's basically getting that, having a conversation, getting feedback from another father figure. I feel like Kevin Costner gives better advice as a ghost in this movie than he does as a real life Paul Kent.
That is true.
It's like, finally, his Pa Kent.
Yeah, I'll give that one to Snyder. That part of the movie didn't upset me, or I didn't think it was random in any way.
It's point to Snyder on this one too. Not overwhelmingly so, but I don't think the critics have as much of a say about anything against it. It's fine. Why does he initially go on it though? Go on this little thing? What leads him to do this?
Because the Senate explosion sort of creates this loss of faith in being Superman.
Okay,
much.
that
So
does.
he goes off.
Yeah, that does make sense, I guess. I mean, you kind of want his, Fortress of Solitude, whatever version of that is. I mean, to me, he was so good at the designing of Krypton. I'm sure that would carry over into his Fortress of Solitude, whatever that would look like. So I don't know. I feel like we missed out on that, but Kevin Costner's scene was good. I remember people in the theater. You know, there's that moment in whenever you watch a movie in the theater, whenever something like that comes up, you can just feel the reaction of people.
Right.
Like whoa, that kind of thing in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had that, I remember, and of course Costner, great casting for Paul Kent. Just didn't have the best lines in Man of Steel, but like Zach said, this is it was better. So yeah, points to Snyder.
Nice. All right, Snyder 8, Critics 14. This is a sequence where I've come around on, because I think when I first saw it, I was just like, why are we going on this tangent? Get back in your fucking suit and go. like I know that you're already going to regain your faith in humanity. Like, come on, you have to have a fight with Batman. This is called Batman versus Superman. Like, why are we wasting our time? But when I was rewatching it and keeping in mind Snyder's intentions, I was like, you know what? I get it. Like, I get that this is it. It's about, the whole point is supposed to be Superman losing his faith, and it does make sense that he would need some time to himself and reconnect with who his father is in his mind, wouldn't be Jor-El, but would be Jonathan Kent, because he only knew Jor-El in AI form for 2 days, but Jonathan Kent he grew up with for 18 years. So it's a welcome return for Kevin Costner. I think also when I first watched it, I was so distracted that Kevin Costner was in this movie and wondering why we had the subplot that I don't think I actually paid attention to what he was saying. But when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, I get it. This ties into the theme with him, kind of getting punished for doing the right thing, which is what we talked about in previous episodes. And that's the whole point with the whole montage with him with the whole Day in the Dead thing and saving people and people questioning it. So, it is definitely it's a darker exploration of Superman, but it's a necessary one, and I think it makes sense, and it strives to make Clark more of a relatable figure than just if he was mentally fine all the time. So point goes to Snyder on that. Snyder 8, Critics 14. So
catching up.
So anyway, after the break, we are going to be leading up to the Batman versus Superman fight. We're going to have a lot of Snyder versus Critics on that one.
Oh,
so
shit.
Catch you after the break.
Need some adventure in your life? What Mad Universe is a podcast about the history of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, where we delve the depths of pop culture history.
Everything's the same politically, but we have ray guns.
The actual motive isn't to explore something that's, quote, scientifically possible or...
But neither is Star Wars, and I know there's arguments about that, but I would definitely consider Star Wars science fiction.
You haven't read Dune!
No, I haven't.
You can never be the Kwisatz Haderach. What Mad Universe on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, big man, my name is Pito. Get it? Pito. Real name is Pete. Villain name Pito. Just like what you did, man. With the magnets and all that.
Pito. Well, my name is not Magneto. It's Magneto. There's a difference, my boy.
6 of one, half a dozen other, big man.
I do not know what that means.
Pito is a name. You don't know what that means?
Homo sapiens and their terminology.
You don't like the name Pito? Doesn't it strike fear into the hearts of heroes and whatnot?
I don't know exactly why I should be afraid of you.
Well, my power is a super shriek.
Super shriek?
Super shriek. Check this out.
Thank God I'm wearing the helmet. You remind me of the Banshee, who I used to work with in Cuba.
Fuck that guy. He's a twerp. Pito was the real deal, man. Pito and Magneto. You and me, buddy?
Banshee sacrificed way more than you ever have for our kind.
I didn't know you liked that guy.
Show some respect.
Anyway, I think that Magneto and Pito should get together and make the human race finito.
Well, at least we agree on something.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. First stop, Vegas. We're going to win at all the slots, all the blackjack, all that kind of stuff, craps table, even a little bit of pie gal, and then destroy it completely. And then
Vegas.
Yes, and then go from there. You know what I'm saying? Branch out, but I think we just need to have a little good old time in Vegas first.
I've never considered Vegas.
I think you could do the magnetic powers on them there slots.
We could win pretty big.
I think so. I mean, money is made out of metal, right? A lot of it. Gold bars are a type of metal.
Yes.
So there you go. Magneto and Pito.
I admit you have potential, Pito.
You want to go get a burrito on the way to Vegas? Pito and Magneto getting a burrito before we make everybody finito.
I suppose it fits the theme.
That's what I'm talking about, brother. All right now.
But first, we need to find my daughter. She's in this weird town with some robot boyfriend who I disapprove of.
I mean, if he's a robot made out of metal, I think you got that one, big man.
Excellent point. I like you already, Pito.
I'm wearing this big-ass metal belt buckle, so you can just fly me on over there, and we'll fly there, and fucking, we got this. Take that motherfucker out.
We will be fury that this world has never witnessed.
Before you rip him apart with your Magneto powers, I'm going to scream at him real quick. Give him the super shriek. Give him the old 1-2. Shriek-a-doodle-doo, boy.
That's a good boy, Pito.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's a good boy.
I mean, I'm not a boy, but I mean, I'll take it since we're cool now.
I'm about 80 years old. Everyone is a boy to me.
That is true. You are old as fuck. All right, let's go head to Westview.
And I will have that burrito.
That's what I'm talking about. Magneto and Pito.
All right, everybody, if you like that sketch right there, we have that plus news, plus we're bringing back some opinion pieces and review type stuff and all kinds of stuff in our $5 tier on Patreon. So just go to patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and if you become part of the $5 tier, you can see these new bonus episodes. Basically, consider it Superhouse DLC. It's a kerfuffle if I ever saw one.
Welcome back to Batman vs. Superman, Snyder vs. Critics, and we are going to do the lead up into the fight between Batman vs. Superman. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Hell yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Very different responses from that, but okay. So,
I can't
wait. After Clark talks to his dad, Snyder deliberately has a scene with Bruce inside Wayne Manor with Alfred. This was to draw a parallel of the relationship between the men and their two fathers. So, in terms of Clark, it's him talking to his dead dad, Jonathan, who gives him that hope for humanity. Whereas here, Bruce is pretty much visiting his dad's tomb and talking about the family legacy of being hunters, which I loved. That's one of my favorite bits in the movie.
That is cool. Was that in the, again, I'm sorry, was that in the original?
Yeah, that's in the original.
It was, okay.
I remember being in the theater just being like, ooh, when he's like, they were hunters. And then he just walks away from Alfred. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty badass.
Was that in the comics ever?
No, they came up with that. That's a Terrio Snyder thing.
Okay, that is cool though, because some of it's like the Waynes were early bankers in the Wild West or some shit, right? In the Jonah Hex comics.
Yeah. No, the whole idea of like, you know, they sold pelts to the French and stuff. Like, I don't think that's in the comics. I think they came up with that just to set up the line. They were hunters.
Right. Yeah,
that was cool. My only criticism of this scene is that I feel like Alfred should talk Bruce more out of trying to kill Superman versus just saying that you're going to get killed. But maybe Alfred is just thinking
perhaps it is a good idea after all, sir.
But I
don't like that blue fuck either.
Maybe Alfred's just thinking this is the best way to get through to him and thinking that like you're going to die as opposed to maybe you shouldn't fight this guy. So not a big thing. I'm not going to put that against Snyder. Snyder also brings up that a lot of the images from the movie are people walking away from camera to represent Solitude. So we are following, and even in the dream sequence, we follow Bruce first when he's going through the field towards the tomb. We follow Alfred going towards the field. Bruce walks away from Alfred into the field, all representing Solitude. And that image of Bruce walking away from Alfred into the field is actually paralleled at the end, which we'll get into when we get to the finale.
Right. And there's a parademon that pops out of the fucking mausoleum, right?
That's a bat.
That's a bat. It's a bat.
Yeah.
It's a bat. Yeah, that's right. That was cool.
Yeah.
I like that scene. I like that part a lot.
Yeah. As I said, it kind of reminded me of the cut Batman Forever scene a little bit.
Yeah. It was good.
All right, we're going to get into Lex Luthor's motivation. So we're not going to get into his plan yet. I'm saving that for the final episode because that's when we know all the pieces of his plan come together. But I'm going off of Lex's motivation because this is kind of the only time where he talks about his motivation. He has the whole line about how no man in the sky intervened to deliver him from his dad's abuse. And that he figured out way back that if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, he cannot be all powerful. So that's Snyder's way of saying that this is sort of his version of Lex putting his stamp on the character, saying that it comes from this idea that he doesn't believe in Superman and what he stands for and wants to expose Superman as a fraud because there's no possible way that this type of person with all these powers would be on the side of good.
This is something that, like I said, I was an atheist for 10 years. I still am. And people say this is lines that are said in like atheist circles as well about I don't want to get too into this, but the Christian God and any kind of God like that. And I think Terrio maybe borrowed some of these lines because I feel like I'd heard this before. One of the first podcasts I ever listened to was called The Atheist Experience, and they would talk about this kind of thing quite a bit. What omnibenevolence is not, and then what was the other line? All-knowing, omniscience. You can't have both at the same time because they will
be
contradict.
All powerful and all good.
Yeah, they're trying to inject some depth in it via this like philosophical / theological conversation, which I appreciate, but I think ultimately it kind of falls flat here.
Right.
It feels like look, Terrio won a fucking Oscar. Like that guy, they know what they're doing, but I just kind of felt like this part was not handled that well. It just kind of falls flat.
Right. Critics would say that the motivation is muddled here because basically like he doesn't buy Superman as good because his dad beat him when he was younger. And no God was around to save it. I get that it's more complicated than that, but that's kind of how it's summed up, and I think it's sort of seen as like it's a nice philosophical reason, but not necessarily an emotional motivation. But where do you guys side on that? I think Andrew made his pretty clear. What about you, Zach?
I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's
okay.
Just
Remember, Zach's the fan of the Eisenberg Lex.
Yeah, you're the one.
Yeah, it's the atheist in me, but it is very. I kind of like it. It does give him some motivation. It makes us see how insane he is, but it shows us that he is associating Superman with the theological God. So I think it's his way of trying to shape his world, just like Batman does. He's got to take, he wants to make the world make sense, so he's going to make it make sense and shape it the way that he wants to, and he wants to play God. Lex does, I know, and to bring down a God, I think, is just the ultimate control for him. But you do see that, he doesn't. I guess that's his motivation, is he doesn't believe that he can be all good because he doesn't think that if God exists, he can be all good because of the abuse that he suffered. Now that doesn't, I think I'm kind of giving him some extra credit, like looking into the comic book version of Lex Luthor, because I think that's probably like his biggest thing is it's all about power. And him to be able to like take down a God, or God in his mind, is like the ultimate goal for him. But I didn't mind that little speech. I kind of liked it.
Okay. Andrew, do you have more to add?
Okay. I'm now rethinking of it on the fly here. But he says this is about Lex not liking how powerful Superman is, right?
Yes.
So he's saying there's no way this guy can be good because he's all powerful. But it just seems like is that like Lex's? I don't know. I'm gonna still go critics just because.
Right.
Again, it's one of those things where Snyder's kind of headed in the right direction, but this one's a little tough for me, honestly. But it just feels kind of like haphazardly injected in. I wish I could figure a better way to say it.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it seems like, we need a line about his motivation. Let's throw this in and throw in some philosophy at the same time.
Let's make him sound deep, y'all.
To me, I'm like, this is fine from a philosophical level. However, people aren't necessarily motivated through their actions by philosophies or by their philosophies. They're motivated by, a lot of their own actions. They're motivated by their like things that happened to them in the past that cause them to do stuff right now. And sure, some of it could be the abuse, but it's, as we said, like that's a little muddled here. Like in the post-Crisis comics, at least with the John Byrne reboot with the Man of Steel in the 80s, it was kind of more about the fact that this Superman sort of replaced him, and he became envious of that, and he sort of used the idea of, you know, I need to protect the world from you. I need to protect Earth from aliens and stuff. That was kind of just his pretense. That was kind of just all for show, when deep down it was just because he couldn't stand the fact that there was somebody who could reach the sky higher than him. There's actually, you know, one of the best parts of the Lois and Clark pilot is when Lex tells Lois and Clark, like, I like being in LexCorp Tower because everyone has to look up to see me. And at the end, just to piss him off, Superman says to Lex, if you ever need to find me, just look up. And Lex is pissed off at that. Similar thing with John Cryer's Lex Luthor. In Supergirl, one of his first scenes, he rants about how the fact that he says, quote, I was the man of tomorrow, not him. How he was supposed to be the one to sort of set the example for humanity, and Superman sort of swept in and stole his thunder. We can relate more to jealousy. I feel like jealousy is more... sure, it's been played out, but I mean, it's a motivation, an actual motivation. Here, I'm just like, okay, like we have a little bit of one, but it seems muddled, especially given what happens after. Once we go into Lex's plan, you know, Zach and I kind of talked about this offline, but Lex's plan, if this is his motivation, gets a little muddled by creating Doomsday at this point.
Yes.
That's true. That is true. Again, Nolan's so much better at this kind of thing, like injecting religious, deep, philosophical shit that connects with sci-fi ideas and stuff like that. This part wasn't handled that well, in my opinion.
Snyder 8, Critics 15. Critics got the 15. So, all right, moving on to the next part. I don't really have a tidbit, so we're just going to go on to the next part because we're getting to a point where like it's kind of back to back with the Snyder versus Critics stuff. But this is something that Andrew brought up in one of the previous episodes. But what was criticized was the scene where Superman goes to Lois about how Lex is setting up the fight and that Batman has to die, and the line, quote, "No one stays good in this world," was criticized as being probably the most un-Superman-like thing ever said by Cavill. However, Snyder would point out that that's the point. That the whole point is that he has lost hope at this point, but is kind of forced to still fight for it in order to save his mom. Either he has to get through to Bruce or he has to kill Bruce in a way. And what does Superman have to deal with that? So where do you stand when it comes to, like, do you feel like that scene properly conveys Superman's emotional journey, or do you think that it was kind of just, as we would say, like a very dour turn of events that you kind of know aren't really going to come about?
Yeah, there is no emotional journey for Superman. It's just like we already talked about it. Like, we don't see the hopeful side of Superman. He is just like down in the dumps from the beginning of this movie. Even even when he's saving people, I like to see him save people, but he just seems so down about it. So we never actually get a chance to see him have any hope in humanity. So to me, there's no arc. There may be a very, very slight gradual slope. No arc. And there's no big arc for Superman. He doesn't go from being hopeful to dour. It is just like kind of, I don't know. He doesn't have an arc. So yeah, I will give Critics points for this one.
Andrew?
This is the taxi cab scene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously Critics. I mean, this is the worst scene.
You hate that scene. Yeah.
I think this is a bad scene. It's just because it's just overly emo, like, I just hate how he acts in this scene. It just doesn't seem like super. I'm a huge Cavill fan. I think he's great. I just think the scene sucks. This scene fucking sucks, dude. That's all I have to say about that. There's no big fucking critique from me on this one. He's just so overly dour, overly, like, one of you guys were talking about, like, he's just so burdened with his responsibility, I guess. It's just, it's too much. Don't need it. Take the scene out entirely.
I'm actually going to side with Snyder on this, even though that I've been outvoted on this, because I feel like, again, this is the whole point of the story was for him to be at this point and at his lowest point on here, and so it's kind of necessary to see him sort of be hopeless. I would say that this actually conveys it better than the Senate explosion. Probably because of the fact that he has a fucking line of dialogue this time.
I can strangely agree with that, actually.
Yeah. It does convey that. However, I don't know if we necessarily needed him losing faith in humanity, talking to his dead dad, then coming back and then losing his faith in humanity again on here. But in terms of the scene on its own, conveying what needs to convey, I think it did its job. I hated it on first viewing, but upon revisiting it and seeing what the intentions were, I get what it is. Again, for the scene itself, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with this in terms of the intentions. However, in terms of Superman's arc, as I do kind of agree with Zach, there's like they could have done better in terms of making him more hopeful in the beginning to give more impact for him losing hope later on in this movie.
You know what? I just thought about that. That really doesn't make sense that he just went and talked to Ghost Dad and got some hope back, but then came right back down here, and now he's dour again because he knows he's going to have to either stop Bruce or kill him. Yeah. I think they just added that scene in there to remind you that his mom's name's Martha.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
Your mom, Martha. Yeah. It could also, because it could have also been he regains his hope in humanity talking to his dad, and then tells Lois, like, you know, I have to talk Bruce out of it, or else I have to let him kill me. But I still believe I can get through to him.
Right.
Like, I believe in Bruce Wayne, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. In which case, we go over to Snyder. I mean, it's going to go to the critics anyway. But I'm just like,
I want to give Snyder more points, but man,
I know we'll come up with stuff.
Not good.
Made a valiant effort, Ben.
Yeah.
I tried here. Next tidbit is Wonder Woman when she goes to her hotel room. A very brief second, you see Golden Age comics on the bed, the original comics for the first appearances. You can barely make them out, but apparently it's a whole bunch of Golden Age comics that are on there. Right before the power goes out and before she opens the email. I'll also retroactively add a tidbit because I realized that I could have added one in between the whole Lex motivation and the no one stays good in this world line. But Eisenberg's Lex likes to call Superman Clark Joe because Clark's middle name is Joseph. Fun fact, Lex Luthor's middle name is Joseph as well.
Oh, wow.
I think
That's
it's
right.
Alexander Joseph Luthor, which means they both have the same middle name, and I think that's what they have in common with Schuster.
I thought he was just adding that because he knew he was a country bumpkin.
Yeah, that too. That's
What's going on, Clark Joe?
I don't think he added it to point out the parallel. I'm just pointing out the parallel here as like a fun fact.
Yeah.
He calls him that in the movie?
He calls him Clark Joe.
Yep.
Yeah.
He calls him Clark Joe a couple times, I think.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right. Next, Snyder Vs. Critics is people criticized the fact that we were introduced to the Justice League through emails. They thought it was too lame. They thought it was weird that Lex had already branded these heroes with their nicknames and their logos.
That's right.
And stuff. So, where do you stand on that? Because obviously Snyder was doing that to introduce you to the Justice League, or tease the Justice League. After all, it's Dawn of Justice. But where do you guys stand on that, starting with Zach?
I don't know. I can't imagine what else they would do at this point. It does feel like it was something that was very shoehorned in to try to set up the Justice League. It's a lot. I guess it goes along with the idea that if it's on film, you need to show it and not say it. And that's like, we're watching a woman open an email. We're watching a video. We're watching a film where someone's watching a video on their computer to try to set up these characters. And it's just like, well, here they all are really quick. And it is kind of funny, the fact that Lex did already make up logos for everybody. Like, why would he do that? What's the point of that?
Branding.
It's silly as hell. Yeah.
So where do you stand on that, Zach? Are you kind of just in between?
I'm going to give it to the critics. I can't imagine how else it would be done with the way the movie is now. I mean, I really just feel like isn't it nice just to have like Wonder Woman in it? Do we have to like have any setup for the other characters right now? Couldn't she? I know she says something at the end about others like her. Could that have just been it? Do we really have to have like the whole email thing?
I guess the problem would be how do they know that there are others like her?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to give it to the critics because I can't I don't think it was the best handled, but I can't think of another way they could have introduced them in such a short amount of time, briefly in the film.
Mm-hmm. Andrew?
It's bad, but I do think this might be, not that I'm going to give it to Snyder. I think it's critics, but I do think this. Now, the more I think about this, the more it does feel like Warner Brothers breathing down their necks, maybe, and like put them in there, put them in there. Like I feel like Terrio and Snyder probably succumbed to this, and they just didn't have enough time to figure it out. Again, I don't know that. It's probably way too inside baseball to really for us to ever really know, unless one of them gives an interview and doesn't give a fuck anymore. They probably won't, because they like their careers, especially Snyder at this point. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but I still maybe give it to critics just because it's just outside of the meta stuff of the industry and producers and stuff like that. If we just talk about story and how story is conveyed via film, it's not good. It's like all the shit that Zach just said. We're watching a video of somebody watching a fucking video that has almost nothing to do with anything else, really.
Right.
So, critics.
I was going to give this one to Snyder, but I've been outvoted. Because kind of like what Zach said, I don't really picture any other way you could have necessarily done it when they don't really play much of a role in the story. I'm kind of fine with the idea that they kind of already know who Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash are, so that it makes it easier to set up the Justice League on that. If I feel like I don't think I really had a problem with the actual setup. I just felt that the outside of the scene, I didn't like the pacing of it, because we're on our way to this Batman-Superman fight. You know, it's about to go down, and then here's like 5 minutes of her watching this email at it. To me, I'm just like, you could have placed it somewhere else, but the email itself doesn't bother me. If Bruce had seen that in the Batcave while he saw the Wonder Woman photograph, and that's when he learned about that stuff,
right?
Maybe that would have made more sense.
Yeah, even if he didn't open any videos, if when he looked at the Wonder Woman thing, he saw those logos up there, I feel like that would have been enough of a tease. And what does the scene really add to the movie overall?
It shows you.
Almost
I would argue, though, that if Bruce had, let's say that he opened those things after he got, he meets Wonder Woman at the party. She tells him that she gave the drive back. He opens it when he gets back to the Batcave. Then Flash shows up. Then you know who the Flash is. But that's not what they did anyway.
Could Flash and Wonder Woman show up in the nightmare sequence? So then you have everybody fighting.
That's true too.
And then it's more organic, and you don't have them fucking open up an email, and it makes sense because at least it's in a dream sequence that's started by the Flash anyway.
I think
I'm not going to argue with that.
Seemingly.
Right.
Well, I think, and this is like talking about something that hasn't even come out yet, but I do think that in the Snyder cut of Justice League, we do see that they are, at least Wonder Woman has already been killed, because it shows something about like her armor or like her tiara or something is there like amongst the rubble. But yeah, just seeing some remnants of them would have been interesting. But yeah, I feel like that even having it earlier before he sees Flash would have been a better setup, and you could have made that connection more easily. That that's who the character was. So yeah, like you said, pacing is just like, we're all hyped and ready to get over to the fight, but let's take a couple minutes with Wonder Woman to open her emails.
Yeah.
I think another meta thing, though, is in support of Snyder and the bullshit they probably had to deal with, at least you see them in action and not just like them talking about it or whatever. Because like at this time, there was no Wonder Woman movie, there's no Aquaman movie, there's no Justice League yet. So you at least see the Flash do Flash powers. You get to see Momoa underwater with the fucking Trident, and Wonder Woman doing her thing. So that can help cement this idea in people's heads in the theater, and just like it's a marketing thing as well. People did make fun of it. It's like, is this a marketing front of the next movie, with preview? But at least, again, meta as hell, but it helped those actors out. Momoa, by the way, talks about being basically broke until he was in Game of Thrones, and he was in maybe he was bad with money, I don't know, but he was
maybe
he was in Stargate and shit like that. He was didn't really have a whole lot of money until recent years. So
I don't know. I'm
just trying to think of the positives here, guys.
Hey, at least they didn't do the stupid shit that they did in Suicide Squad, where it was like a video game. Like, whenever we talked about each character, like their
Real name, Arthur Curry, powers.
Just this kind of like still frame like image of them doing something. Oh, I hated that. So at least it's not like that.
Right.
Not that level of badness.
Right.
Yeah. So me personally, I didn't have a problem with it being emails so much as the fact that it was placement wise, it just ruined the pacing to lead up to the big fight. If they had been in the Batcave earlier, I would have excused it. Or if it was a post-credit scene, if Batman takes Wonder Woman to the Batcave, that's true, shows the stuff, and then he's like, "Help me find the others like you," and that's the last scene of the movie. That would have been cool too.
Nolan says he hates post-credit scenes, and this is produced by Nolan, so like maybe that's a.
But I don't know how much of a creative say Nolan had in this one.
Dude, I don't know, man.
Anyway, next tidbit is, according to Snyder, his vision of Aquaman was that this version of Arthur had been training with his mother's trident with Volko. Because remember, it was Snyder who cast William Dafoe as Volko, not James Wan. He had cast William Dafoe beforehand, as well as Amber Heard as Mira.
That's cool.
So Arthur had trained with his mother's trident with Volko, but would always give it back. He never wanted to keep it. He wasn't ready to take up the real mantle at this point in time. So that's a little bit of the thing from Snyder's.
This is the 5-point trident to it. This is the Quindent.
Right, because he's not ready for the trident until he gets to the James Wan's Aquaman movie.
That's right. That's right. Subtle changes there going on.
Yeah. So I think it's time that we dive into the many points of the Batman versus Superman fight. I don't have tidbits here because it's one after the other here. So here we go. First criticism. Why doesn't Superman just talk to Batman or fly him up and tell him what the situation is, that his mother, Martha, has been kidnapped? He could have easily flown him up and lifted him up, is the criticism. Why does this have to be a fight? Snyder would obviously say that it does have to be a fight because it's fucking Batman versus Superman. But in terms of the internal logic of the story, though, people would say, like, why doesn't Superman at least try to do that to explain it to Bruce? So how do you guys feel about that? Do you agree with that, or do you think, like, it's a small thing?
I agree with that criticism. They're just fighting over whose weenie's bigger at that point. Like, steering each other down.
Winky.
Who has the bigger dick splash?
That's right.
Bigger dick splash.
Who's winky? Oh, it's like we said earlier, they could have, lots of movies issues could have just been solved with people communicating. Yeah, he could have Super Speed just be like, they got my mom, I gotta get, I gotta save her. Even if he had said that and Batman's like, I don't trust your ass, that would have been something that Superman at least made the attempt to get through to Bruce, and then we could have seen that Bruce is just like so far gone and in his head at this point that he's like, he doesn't want to hear anything that Superman has to say. Yeah. I think that would have been better. But no, I agree. The way we see it, Superman just seems like inept at human communication, and it's just Bruce, like, don't do this.
You gotta listen to me. Andrew.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think I'm pretty much leaning towards critics, but just to he flies up to him. Let's have a little recap here. He flies up to him, and Superman is thinking, what at this point? Like, what is he trying to tell
Bruce?
He
has to talk Bruce out of this, or he has to kill Bruce in order for Lex to release Martha.
Okay, so
remember, that's what he says in the taxi cab
because
scene.
Lex is like controlling the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, it would have been cool to have him, like, his first move is a pushes him back really far, which is like, why is Superman doing that, for one?
Yeah.
Feels like Batman's the one that's angry. Should have been Batman to throw the first punch, to be honest with you. Superman literally does the first move in this whole fight. On top of that, he should have, like, it would be kind of cool if he, like, hugged him, but
I love you, man.
Give him a big hug and then a big kiss. No, like, take him up into space or near space, and then he brings out the kryptonite or one of the the kryptonite grenades, and he falls down, which is going to be a far ass fall, but then opens up the bat cape or whatever, and then is able to kind of hang glide down. That would be a cool little sequence. So Superman already tried that. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So even this, is a little muddled in my opinion. So yeah, critics, I guess. There's a lot about the fight that's obviously good with Snyder, but not this part.
Right. Yeah, I think this is an absolutely legitimate problem with the scene, is that Superman's attempts to get through to Bruce are pretty dismal and pretty weak in a way. Again, like right after, like, you don't understand, and Batman's like, I understand. Like literally just grab him, lift him up, and be like, they're trying to kill my mom. Now, if Batman still doesn't listen to him, then at least Superman tried. But the problem is we didn't even get that attempt.
Right.
It's literally just like, Bruce, you gotta you gotta listen, and then suddenly they're just gonna fight because Superman's just like, well, I tried for like 2 seconds,
Is Snyder's thinking here though? Snyder's thinking here though is that Superman is too mad at him for the judge, jury, executioner shit. He's been like how Clark's been mad at the Batman. Is that the thinking though? Even if Snyder's wrong, like
but it's muddled because then it's just like, why isn't the fight about that and not about Martha?
It changes at that point, right? Because his mother's involved. So yeah, it's. I don't know. I just
muddled,
don't
the whole
know,
branding
guys.
thing not make sense, doesn't it, Andrew?
It just really doesn't. Darkness.
I guess I do have a tidbit, actually. Before this scene, Superman was going to try to find Martha himself. There was going to be... there's a scene that I don't think was shot, because it's not in the Ultimate Edition, because they would have added that in. But Superman tries to find Martha himself, and you hear all the cries of people who need help, but he has to ignore all of them, and he still can't find her. So... that sounds depressing as fuck, but like that's actually was meant to be in there. I don't think we needed it. I think that it was pretty extreme to have Superman be like, no one stays good in this world beforehand anyway. So hearing him basically have to ignore the cries for help at the same time probably would have given us another Snyder versus Critics scene. Let's just go about that. I'm sure that would have been controversial.
Right.
Snyder 8, Critics 18.
What was the whole point of Lex trying to set up Clark against the idea of Batman if he's just going to use his mother as collateral to
exactly
do all that?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, Snyder 8, Critics 18. However, I do have to give, here's something that I think should be an automatic point to Snyder: the Dark Knight Returns armor suit.
Oh hell yeah!
Brought to life.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's
Snyder.
True.
Yeah, like that is pretty much, and it's got the lenses. We forgot about a lot of times that's overlooked that Affleck does wear the lenses with that.
I want to call back everybody. Go to the backlog. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but AJ Catalano Torres we interviewed. He made the motherfucking lenses.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
That's awesome.
Yep. He's a kind of a lighting specialist at the time. If you listen to that episode, he said, "I'm making lights for a suit right now. It was for Shazam. That's declassified now." But yeah, he made the Shazam light suit. He didn't do Tron, I think, but he's like a lighting guy. That's like his thing. Yeah. So it's pretty cool little niche he's got going on. Niche, whatever pronunciation you prefer.
Yes. All right, Snyder 9, Critics 18. Snyder is 50% behind. We'll see what we can do. Okay, so next criticism. Why, with all the technology at his disposal, would Batman build a spear? Is the criticism. Snyder posted...
It's epic as fuck. It's straight up biblical, baby.
It is.
Blam.
It is, actually. Snyder said, here's why, and literally posted a picture of Jesus getting speared while on the cross.
I'm telling you, it seeps in.
Defense,
it seeps in, defense. Dude. Yeah.
So that is... where do you fall on that? Do you think that that's a lame explanation, or do you think that's fine?
Oh, Lord. It does look cool as hell. And if you hadn't mentioned the whole Jesus thing, I would have just assumed he just did 300 before this, so he's thinking I want Batman to look like one of the warriors with a spear. But yeah,
tonight you dine in hell, Superman.
Yeah, the whole, again, comparing Superman to Jesus is I don't know. That's a little tired to me. I don't like the Christ metaphor for him anyways, but it does look really cool. And then I'm thinking, well, what if Batman, as he has done in the comics before, had a gun with a kryptonite bullet in it? Then we would be arguing over, oh, great, Batman shooting somebody else. Now,
he does already in this, but
exactly. If this Batman had not killed, and if this Batman had not used guns already, or had some form of a gun on him, I think it would have been really powerful for him to have a handgun with kryptonite bullets in it, like he's ready to use something that he despises and hates against Superman. And I don't know, I think that could have been really cool, but in this case, not so much, because again, we've had the whole talk over him using guns for other reasons, and his machine guns on his Batmobile, so he's obviously pretty comfortable with them. But yeah, the spear does look really cool. Logically, though, it's like probably not the best weapon to get the kryptonite into Superman's system.
Well, keep in mind, he still does those bombs. He does have those bombs. That's not the only kryptonite.
That's pretty damn cool. I don't understand why that doesn't kill Superman, but yeah, I don't know. I'm going to give it to Snyder because it looks cool.
Yep. Andrew?
Also Snyder. I think that you already got it kind of explained in the mythos that Batman's got a flair for the dramatic. I know that was a fucking Nolan thing, but that's a Batman thing. And I think that a spear is dramatic and it's a cool visual, and I don't like the Jesus thing. It is tired, like he said, but other than that, I mean, we've already seen him be stabbed in Superman Returns, and if it was a gun, it'd be one more gun. So it's like, at least it varies it up, and it's just like somebody trying to really stab somebody with a spear is
penetration.
Exactly. It's very visceral, very visceral visual as well. So it just seems like he just really wants to kill that motherfucker. So I don't know. I give this one to Snyder. It's not a big deal to me.
Yeah. I give this one to Snyder too. It never really bumped me until people pointed it out, and I'm just like, I guess, but like it's. Batman's supposed to be out of character in this anyway, in terms of the point where he wants to kill Superman. So, you know, I'm not bumped by the fact that he chooses a spear over some other ways to get the kryptonite. That's the least of the problems here. So, Snyder 10, critics 18. All right.
No.
Next part, the Batman vs. Superman fight was criticized for being too short for a movie called Batman vs. Superman. In the Screen Rant pitch meeting, they said they're going to fight for 2 minutes. I think it's a little longer than that, or 5 minutes or something. But it's 5. They say something like that, but that's kind of the criticism, that the fight was too short, actually, on this. But where do you guys stand on that?
Oh, yeah, I guess it could have been a little bit longer. If they didn't call the movie Batman versus Superman, then it would not have built up those expectations. But I don't know. They are trying to fit so much story into one movie that I guess they couldn't spend like 30 minutes fighting. Maybe it could have stretched out over a bigger span of area. I'm not this is going off topic a little bit, but I'm not super familiar with like the Rocky movies and other fighting movies. Do those fights generally go on for an extended amount of time? I feel like they're, I don't know, usually kind of short. I'm not sure.
I mean, usually they're the finale, though. This is like towards the end of the second act. We still got 30 minutes left after this, if you're in the Ultimate Edition. Yeah,
I mean, I'll give this one to Snyder, because I feel like if it was any longer, then people would have complained about that and said, they're fighting too long and all this stuff. I mean, to me, this is like my favorite part of the movie. I don't have any complaints over the actual fight. I feel like I was pretty, into it at that point. And we'll get into it with part 4, but I think the ending kind of surprised me, because I was thinking this was going to be like the finale of the movie.
Right. Andrew?
It needs to be longer. I mean, really? I've said before, I like The Matrix 1 because you got like 20 minutes of shooting bullets. They run out of fucking bullets, and then they fight hand to hand for another 20 goddamn minutes. I need that in every action movie I see ever.
Okay.
I'm almost not exaggerating. I mean, I like it when I feel like you just get more value out of that movie. Like, I mean, it was also just one too, like if it's Batman vs. Superman, you need to have him like fight in the beginning of the second act and then have a bigger fight at the third act. But this one, it's just like, this is like a fight at the end of the second act.
And the second act, yeah.
The end of the second act. So it's just not enough. Just one fucking fight. Are you kidding me? I need some John Woo in that motherfucker, man. This is too much. This is like not enough.
When I was growing up, I wanted John Woo to do The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
I had some fixation on that for some reason.
Well, his action's so good, you know. And I don't know. I mean, not that it needs to be Dragon Ball, but like I like personally, just my personal opinion, I like long fight scenes. I mean, so they're just fun, and I agree with this. I think it's way too short, and there's only one of them. Are you fucking kidding me?
Took him a long time to make that robot suit now. You know, he's got to get all his money's worth out of it.
At least we extend more into having a fight between the warehouse fight scene, and then we get the Doomsday scene. So at least there's three big. There's one at the end of the second act, and there's two big ones in the third act. So at least we get that. But in a movie called Batman vs Superman, you kind of, at least I expected like some Con Air face off shit, where it's like maybe I'm too much of a '90s kid, but just like more than one, you know.
I think he should have tried to fight him back when he rammed into him with the Batmobile.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Superman could have just like thumped him a little, and that sparked the rage in Batman. He's like, "Oh shit, I gotta make."
You didn't give me your insurance information.
Should have shot his grappling hook at his leg, and then he gets flown up with him, and then they start. I don't know, man. Just something crazy there should have happened.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the kryptonite yet. He would be destroyed.
I should have had a kryptonite somehow.
At that point, you could have seen it was an uneven fight, so that would have been like interesting to see how Batman, I guess, maneuvered against someone like Superman, who's probably coming back.
Superman holding back because he doesn't want to kill him. Superman doesn't want to kill him, and Batman wants to kill him. So, like, I don't know, man. It just one little fucking.
But he's not able to.
Fight scene at the end. Yeah. I'm sorry. I know I've belabored this point, but man, critics.
All right, so Zack says Snyder, Andrew says critics. It's up to me to be the tiebreaker. I'm going to outvote you, Andrew, and go with Snyder on this one because of the fact that this is a fight based off of the fact that it's I don't know what best to say. It's basically ill intentions. It's like they're not really fighting based off of like we don't genuinely want them to fight, really. Lex is only manipulating it so that they do fight. They're not supposed to. We don't. It's almost like we don't want them to, even though it's called Batman vs Superman. But I would argue the title of the movie is Batman vs Superman. The reason why there's no S on it was because the V is supposed to be how they do for court cases. It's supposed to be Batman vs Superman in terms of their conflict in general, not just a fight on here. And so for me, I don't think I needed a longer fight, especially under these pretenses where they're not supposed to be. Like Lex is manipulating the situation on here. It's supposed to be how they get out of this. And how Batman turns around on there. So I was completely fine with the length of it. I was just more impressed by the fact that, you know, it's the fucking Dark Knight Returns Batman outfit, you know, and him fighting Superman through that. But of course, at some point, it needs to end and for these two to team up because we got a Justice League movie coming up. I don't need a lot of fights with the two of them. I think, could it have been better done when it comes to the previous plot point we talked about? Sure. But when it comes to the length of the fight, I didn't have any problems with it. So Snyder 11, critics 18. Snyder is catching up on here.
Just would be cool to have him, like, you know, do his detective work while fighting him in an earlier scene, or I don't know.
That's true.
He never seems
he's
to
studying.
kick.
He studies Superman's moves and the different powers he has, and so it was like those are the weaknesses that he's not going to see this coming because he's not used to fighting. Or
His lenses are shooting video while he fights, or
fucking cool.
Something like that, you know. And then the last fight, he's got the most preparation. Like all these other fights were bullshit to him. It was all fucking the planning stage. You know, it's just what you said makes sense. I don't disagree. I'm just saying. Only one, and the one we got is too short. We just had. It's just length. The length is.
All it comes down to the spear, right, Andrew?
I like him a little bit longer. I'm a length queen.
Okay. Snyder 11, critics 18. One small tidbit is, and I think this is somewhat clear, but just in case, his mask. Batman's mask starts breaking up and you see more of Bruce's face. This is supposed to symbolize him sort of becoming undone and eventually regaining his humanity because of the fact that you see more of his human face on there. So that is a deliberate thing. That is not in The Dark Knight Returns, I don't think. Instead, I think his mask breaks and then he's just unmasked without the helmet in the Dark Knight Returns thing. But I don't think much of the visual was in there, or maybe I'm wrong with that, Zach.
I don't know. Well, number one, that part is badass. I've really wanted to draw like him before. I haven't done it yet, but him with that green lighting on his face with like part of the helmet broken away. And it looks like his mask is underneath it. It looks like there's another layer that's been ripped, like his actual cowl was underneath there. But I think in the comic, it gets damaged, like it gets cracked or something happens where he can't see out of it. And that's when he just takes it off. I feel like Superman kind of like punches it, so Bruce just ends up taking it off.
Yeah, I don't think he spends a long time with a broken thing. It's just once it's broken, he's just off, and then you see him unmasked for the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
In it. So they went with a different route on it. Okay, let's get to the biggest controversial thing to close out this episode for the Batman versus Superman fight. Martha. So, critics thought this was ridiculous and lame that it all stops because of the fact that their moms have the same name, and that's all it took for Batman to stop basically trying to kill him and be his best friend next. However, Snyder has, to this day, still arguing for it and defending it. It's meant to symbolize that Batman is becoming what he fought against, becoming the thing that killed his parents when he's about to do the spear on Superman. And in discovering the fact that he is almost turning into the murderer of his parents, and discovering the fact that blinded by hatred, quote unquote, has he become the thing that he hates, he rediscovers his humanity and sort of seeks to redeem himself, and that sort of sets up the relationship between him and Clark on here, and that's the whole point of the Martha scene, as well as the fact that it's supposed to be about our connection to each other as human beings. The idea that we all have mothers, that our mothers have the same name, that we are connected, and all that. That is the intention of that. So this is probably one of the most hotly debated topics when it comes to this movie in terms of where you side on that. Do you side with the critics in thinking that that's a joke to be parodied, or do you side with Snyder in feeling like there's a good emotional backbone through line to that? Zach?
All right. I've gotten into arguments with people before on Instagram about this, so
okay.
I'm going to do a compliment sandwich. I'm going to say, number one, that I really like that line of Bruce's when he swings Superman around by that grappling hook about how he bets his parents told him that he was special and he was going to, save people or, be whatever. And he's like, my parents taught me a lesson too by dying in the gutter for no reason at all. I was like, that line, I really liked it when I saw the movie the first time. Little did he know that
the Dark Knight Returns line.
Yeah, little did he know that Kevin Costner was a little more amoral about Superman. But I really like that scene and that line that came from, Batfleck. But no, I don't think that was just saying Martha was a good idea. It's like we talked about earlier in the episode, or I think it might have been part one, or what Andrew mentioned, and I think I've mentioned it before too, that it could have just been rewording. You could have just said the word, like, you have to say my mother, or just something like that, like him finally getting out what he should have said to Batman from the very beginning. I just think the fact of their moms having the same name is kind of silly. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it
is comic accurate.
Yes, but I don't think it would be like that organic or something. Like, I don't call my mom by her first name very much, and I know he's trying to say, like, you need to save, like, Martha so that Batman knows who to go get, but he could have said, like, Martha Kent, or, you need to save my mother, Martha. That would have been totally fine. I think it's just the word Martha. It just seems kind of just weird and a little convoluted. I don't like it personally. I think I don't know if I noticed it the first time I watched the movie and how odd it struck me, but after I saw everybody saying that and I watched it again, I was like, yeah, that is kind of weird that he just says Martha and then Batman's like, wait, my mom's name is Martha too. And I don't know. That was, I don't think that was the best route to go as far as being the motivation for the fight ending and Batman regaining his humanity. But I do like it after that Batman finally realizes how much of a villain he has become and how terrible he's become. So that's my compliment sandwich. I liked how it ended and all that. I just think the Martha thing is silly.
Andrew?
When I saw it in the theater, it was very jarring. It just felt so weak. Like this just felt like, I knew immediately people were going to make fun of this the second that I saw it. So, and then when I rewatched it, though, like I said in the first episode of this series that we're doing, it does play a lot better. I'm actually surprised at my reaction to this scene. I couldn't believe, like, am I coming around on this?
Maybe
like,
it's because you saw it coming this time.
Yeah, because I saw it coming. Maybe it's a good idea, but execution is really poor. It should be more like, I don't know, how do you guys feel about this, but there should be maybe more of a setup with Batman's character where he says like something like, well, they call him Superman, I don't know if he's human, something like that,
right.
Where he's like, I'm going to go, you're going to go kill a man, as Alfred says that, and then he's like, well, I'm not sure if he is one, or some line like that.
Yeah,
where he's like, we're living in this world in this movie where we haven't seen this before, so Batman doesn't know, and he's too drugged up to know. No, I don't know, but give me that Percocet. Then the character arc of humanizing Superman, learns that he has a mother, would maybe work for Batman a little bit more, because of how it plays in this. It's just like, I guess you have a mother, so that changes everything I think about you.
Oh yeah.
It's just like so quick and shallow in a way, I guess. And again,
right.
Like I said in the first episode, it's the wording from Superman as well, because he just says Martha out of nowhere. It should have been like, my mother, please go save my mother. I should have told you this to begin with, but please go save my mother.
Right.
But her name is Martha. And then you have the change at least. If you made like these changes, I think it would have played a lot better. But how it plays in the movie, in both versions, no, sir, I don't like it.
He could have even said, Lex is going, Lex, they've got my mother. They're going to kill my mother. And then they could have had Bruce having those flashbacks to that Joe Chill shooting like his mom and her falling. That would have been, I feel like, really powerful, because then he's saying, in his brain, he's like, he is empathizing with Superman at that point.
Right.
And that would have been better than him being like, Martha, that's my mom's name. It just, the name thing, I guess, just throws me.
Why should him learning that he has a mother just change his opinion about him entirely in this moment?
It makes Batman seem very superficial, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have a mom too.
Yeah, why is he
and it totally is like, I also have a mother, please do not kill me with
a mother
the
with the same
flamethrower.
So he can relate to him more because he knows that his mother.
I think it's
connection
basically
because of the names.
I think it's more of what Snyder said about the fact that he didn't see this guy as a human until he mentioned that.
And it wasn't set up that way, though. I feel like.
Agreed.
Not very well known.
So
yeah.
God, I like I said, it played a lot better for me the second time around, but it's still not a pass.
Okay, so critics for you as well.
Yeah,
okay.
Sadly, but I'm gonna go with critics still.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with critics as well, but also just kind of added, and I don't want to just repeat what you guys said, but I think there are some defenders who say that, like, well, maybe he says Martha because off of his investigative journalism skills, he knows that Bruce Wayne's mom is named that, and he uses that tactically. I was like,
nope.
There's no indication that Clark even knows anything about Bruce other than calling him Bruce. It's never indicated that he ever investigated Bruce to know his parents' names, to even do that as a tactical move. So it's kind of, I feel like that's a stretch to say that that's to justify why he says it in that way.
Yeah.
On there.
Like headcanon.
Yeah. I also think it'd be more effective if, as Andrew said in the previous episode, if this was Batman's first kill and he's about to do it and he stops himself because he realizes, in that moment, what he's about to do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what stops him. And then the Martha thing is more of a cherry on top, not necessarily what stops him, but is the thing that sort of cements it further, where it's more of a footnote rather than the main cause, the main catalyst on it. Because I do like the use of the fact that DC Comics writers got lazy in about the 50s or so when they first revealed that these were the names, and gave the two biggest DC superheroes the same names for their moms. And I like that Snyder was just like, why don't we use it as a plot point? I do appreciate that in a way. I just think that as you said, it comes off too ridiculous to be like, your mom's name is the same name as my mom's name. But if there's less emphasis on that, if there's more of a like an additional thing, he's already in there. Because I do like Amy Adams coming in there and saying like, it's his mother's name on top of that. I think people don't actually make fun of that part. They make fun of the, why did you say that name? And the whole Martha thing. They don't make fun of Lois Lane going in there.
Yeah.
So I would say if you make that more of a footnote, you get the same idea across, but it's not as distracting. So I'd say the biggest problem is with these things that are often criticized for Snyder's movies, whether it's the neck snap of Zod or the jar of pee, or with Martha here, we're so distracted by how it's executed that we don't really have time to appreciate the intention behind it. So if you just change the execution to clarify that intention, we can better appreciate the intention, is my argument on that. Anyway,
if you combine, sorry, 1 second. If you combine those lines, maybe again, just thinking of our headcanon writing now that we're in this flow right now, this conversation, like if he said like if Alfred tells Bruce you're going to cross that line or whatever, you've never killed anyone before, and he's like, maybe he says some line that gives off the idea, well, I'm still not crossing that line because he's not human.
Yeah.
If they set that up in some way, that could have played a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't know that he's Clark Kent. He doesn't know all these different aspects. He just thinks that he's an alien, that type of stuff. And that could speak a lot to, not to make this too real world, but speak a lot to like general bigotry and xenophobia and that type of stuff. Not that we want to see Batman being like that, but just the idea that we kind of all have these sorts of prejudices and that there's a way through by just recognizing that we're all human beings.
Oh, dude, not to make it too deep, but a lot of people that, well, I don't want to say a lot, but from what I've heard and other sources is, it's common for armies of one country to dehumanize the people of another country to handle the PTSD. Like it's fucked up, but it's like I didn't kill a human. Like I've heard of stuff like that. So maybe you could put that whole kind of thing in Batman's very angry thinking as well. He's also an actual alien in this story. So it's all that all could work. Yeah.
Snyder 11, Critics 19. We're going to wrap part 3 with this and go into part 4 with the rest of the movie. So that is superhero stuff you should know.
Yeah, brother.
So we have a few fan comments that I wanted to address. One of these comes from 2 comments actually from David Michael Babin. Correct me if I'm wrong on the pronunciation of that. You had 2 comments here, one of which Andrew responded back to
that was
on our account.
'Twas I.
Yes, he says, guys, there was no choice but to kill Zod. The Phantom Zone was gone. There was no mention of kryptonite, nowhere for him to be held or stop him from killing people again. Which, Andrew, I believe you argued that that's only because the writer gave them those circumstances.
Responding like he listed these conditions. It's like, well, yeah, he would have to kill him with those conditions, but again, like we said in that episode, if the writer is God of the world that he or she writes, and you don't have to write those conditions, you could have changed it from the get-go. So it just feels like people write in these conditions. In this case, Goyer and Snyder, where they just really trying to set it up to where it gets to the super dark place. And how necessary do we need to? How necessary is it to get to that dark place? How dark do you want to take it? Why would Superman? It's Snyder's thing. He loves making it this dark. So artistic choice, but wasn't for me, and I think a lot of other people.
Right. The other comment he said was, quote, he chooses humanity and saves billions in the future, can't contain or reform a maniac. Funny thing, David, I don't think I disagree with you at all. I don't think I deny anything that you said in there. I don't think we ever talked about there being an alternative to killing Zod in that exact moment when he's trying to kill the family in the subway. I brought up other people's arguments that he could have covered the heat vision, but in that moment, yeah, I do believe that he would have to do that in order to save humanity and make that choice. What my problem wasn't necessarily the neck snap. As I said, my problem was a similar issue that I brought up earlier in this episode, where there is a payoff of no setup. You have suddenly there's something to do with Superman's morality and his attitude about killing, even though there's been no discussion about it whatsoever throughout the rest of the movie. And that prevents it from being dramatic, and it prevents it from having an impact when Clark doesn't really have a connection or any sort of emotional connection to Zod in the story to make that a difficult dramatic choice for him. Otherwise, it kind of just feels like he has to take out a bad guy in order to protect innocence. Okay, I get that, but it's a lot more dramatic when he has to take out the last of his kind. And I get that that was the intention, but I feel like it doesn't come across because of the fact that it's not properly set up earlier on those things to show that connection between Superman and Zod, as opposed to just the antagonistic connection that they have earlier, or to show that Superman has any sort of morality to be challenged in this. Like the reason why Nolan's Dark Knight gets basically praised a lot was how much they played around with Batman's morality. Yes, he still kills Harvey Dent at the end, and I have problems with that, but my main problem with that is that they basically should have done what Man of Steel should have done if we combined them, make a whole movie about the morality, then challenge that at the end and give him that one time where he has to break that rule in order to save an innocent person, make that dramatic, and then deal with the consequences of that. It feels like we didn't really get that setup like we did with Batman in The Dark Knight, though obviously in The Dark Knight they didn't really play around that much with him killing Two-Face at the end, which is a whole other problem entirely. But what I'm saying is that if we were to take similar setups beforehand, that would be a more dramatic choice for the ending. But yeah, as I said, like I don't disagree with you at all on those choices, on the fact that he would have to kill Zod in order to save billions in the future, and I would expect Superman to do that too. As I said, like we don't have the common arguments against the issues with the movie. We have very sort of unusual reasons behind it. So anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you've been enjoying the episodes.
Yes,
Next
thank
comment.
you. I wonder if it's French, babon.
Oh, maybe.
I wonder.
Feel free to correct us. Yeah.
Let us know.
Asperger's Web is the username for this person. He says, quote, "Fuck, that Sam Hamm script was amazing." He was talking about our the Batman script from 1982 deep dive, where I also covered the Sam Hamm script. He said, quote, "That could have been legit one of the best Batman movies ever. The actual 89 movie is whack. In the Sam Hamm script, we get a movie that actually focuses on Bruce Wayne. It gives Bruce an arc. He doesn't kill. I mean, technically he does. He still blows up Joker's goons at the end. But anyway, Joker is cool. No stupid Joker killing the Waynes, and they organically weave Robin into it. Fuck, why couldn't they have made this?" I do agree with you, Asperger's Web, that I do like the Sam Hamm script better than the actual movie. It is difficult for me to picture that script, though, with the same cast, as I said in that episode. But it does give me hope when Sam Hamm himself is doing the Batman 89 continuation, because of the fact that I love his writing, and I never thought that I would see him continue or go back to the character, especially this iteration of the character. So, we'll see. I would love it if they expand more on the characterization and the depth and the themes of Burton's world, because we know they sure as hell got the visuals down on that. So thank you for that, Asperger's Web.
Somebody says 89 Batman is whack, man. It's just like Zach does not
Stop listening after that.
Thank you for your comment, but
Yeah.
despite whatever faults 89 Batman has, I still think it's pretty solid overall.
All right, last one is from Paul Graham, who had a long comment for us on Part 3 of Man of Steel, where he said, "I just finished your Part 3 of Man of Steel. I really enjoyed it, as I really love this movie, even with the faults. I think it's a great reimagining and something new rather than the same that's been done before. So just two things I'd like to comment on: the destruction of Metropolis and the image of young Clark in the towel cape. So the destruction of Metropolis, I see it as two superhuman, super strength aliens battling it out. If they were on Krypton, they would just be duking it out like humans on Earth, but because they are powerful and desperate to win, Superman to save Earth and Zod to destroy the Earth, the destruction is a result of that power that they both yield, so it's more reckless rather than deliberate. I suppose the destruction is a practical display of just how powerful Kryptonians are." I would agree with that. I also see it like definitely. Godzilla saving Tokyo from another monster. He defeats the monster but demolishes half of Tokyo in battle, and is still considered a win, which is then rebuilt before the next movie to be wrecked again.
Pyrrhic victory.
Godzilla vs. Kong coming in March. The image of the young Clark with the towel cape, I take this as pure imagery, like a premonition of his destiny as Superman, even though he at that time has no idea of his future. And like you guys said, there were other heroes in history that wear capes. I really think it's a destiny image for young Clark, and I really like it as it fits in the aesthetics of the movie. Agreed with that too. I like that moment when I saw it in the trailer. Guys, keep up the good work with these podcasts. I listen on Apple Podcasts while driving to and from work. Thank you very much for that, by the way. I've heard some people be like, I would listen. It's just that some episodes are like an hour and a half long. I'm just like, have you not listened to podcasts before? And also, no one says you have to sit down and listen to the whole thing in one shot. Put all your attention into it.
General length's around an hour or a little bit over an hour. We go over sometimes, but I mean, a lot of podcasts are just under 2 hours too. So, yeah, I've heard that before as well.
Meanwhile, I look over at like Whitney Cummings' podcast with her like 4-hour episode with Kat Dennings. I'm just like, okay, I'm pretty sure we're at a decent length.
Rogan gets it to 4 hours sometimes as well. But that's a whole other level, of course. I like how he says like it was more reckless and not deliberate. That's how I always read it, but I do feel like some fans made it seem like in their criticism they thought that it was deliberate, and it's just like I said in that episode, Superman's just keeping pace with Zod, and Zod doesn't give a fuck. So,
some fans flat out say Superman killed those people in Metropolis, and I was like, that's a stretch.
Indirectly, and he didn't want to, but I mean,
he's
trying to save the fucking world at the same time. So look, it's a controversial ass film for sure.
I'm looking forward to your Batman vs Superman Ultimate Cut podcast. Well, here we are. And I hope that once Snyder's Justice League is seen, you will not only deep dive through the whole 4 hours of that, but also maybe go through all the changes and comparisons with the Justice League.
Perhaps we will. I mean, who knows
Perhaps
to say?
We will.
Who knows what's going to happen in this crazy world that we live in?
Perhaps we will. You'll
knows?
stay tuned for that. So thank you very much for that. Moving on to Andrew.
Whew. Oh, man. Well, thank you for all those comments, for one. And then also thank you to our Patreon supporters first and foremost. They are Shasta, Leom O, Super Inframan, Douglas P, Dan D, Aaron Willett, and then we'd like to thank our other supporters that support us in other ways, such as Sparkageddon, SDCT Productions, Robert Schumann, Kooky Noms, Matt Herring, Elijah B, Shamrock Balls, Ian H, and Walter the Wobot. Woo! Shasta Army. Patreon.com/superherostuffpod. That's the $1 tier that gets you one of them there shout-outs. And then the $5 tier, whole extra show that we plug in this show a few times an episode. But yeah, we do the deeper dive there. And God, our Patreon is like, what, 2 hours sometimes? Like, you get like pretty good, like...
It's pretty much the same length as these now.
Yeah, like it's a lot. And thank you for your service there, Ben, on all that research.
Exhausted.
Yeah. It seems like a lot. But yeah, I mean, you think this series, the stuff that we do on YouTube and Spotify and stuff, is like this main show is deep dive. It is a deep dive, but it's like, you know, we go over Krypton's moon in on the Patreon. So, and other things, of course, but it's like pretty deep dive there. And we have all kinds of merch at the Redbubble store, superhousepod.redbubble.com. TeePublic as well, teepublic.com/user/superhousepodcast5000. And then Threadless Superhero Stuff pod.threadless.com. Ben Man merch, Indeed Wizard merch, Superhero Stuff You Should Know logo merch, mugs, shirts, all that kind of shit is on there. Please leave us a review on iTunes. And then also would love it if you send us an audio clip of you saying whatever the fuck, record it on your phone, voice recorder app, and then send that audio clip to superhousepodcast@gmail.com. And then you'll be on the show right there. And then I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter, and also on YouTube as Thunderwolf Lives. Search for me on there, all kinds of shit. Japanese related, my other Japan-centric interests are on there, video games and shit like that. That's it for me. Ben.
You can follow us on Twitter at SuperhousePod, and you can also follow us on Instagram at SuperheroStuffPod, which is how we met Zach. You can follow my personal Instagram at Ben1Writer, as well as my son's Instagram, my cat, Alfie Pennyworth Cat at Instagram.
My furry son.
My furry son, yes. My website is ben1writer.com, where you can read my Gotham spec that I've put up there, along with a commentary page that has all the deep dives of all the different Easter eggs and where I was going with it, including deleted scenes on there. So check that out when you can. And there should be links there as well in the description, as well as on my website for my channel, where as of right now we have a lot of clips from this podcast where I pitch different ideas of different comic book movies along the way. Stay tuned, there's definitely more to come. And then over to you, Zach. Where can our listeners find you? They probably have found you already, and if not, then shame on them. But just to remind them, in case they haven't, where can they find you?
They found me and they've already started to harass me.
Oh, you're doing those dances on TikTok.
No.
Catch Zach dancing on TikTok, everybody. Zachary Jackson Brown on TikTok. He's dancing for you.
You can so you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Zachary Jackson Brown Art, and you can actually see the time-lapse video of me working on a portrait of Batfleck on my TikTok. So you can take care of that. And Andrew, I got to tell you, this Dan D guy, I thought for this whole time you were saying Dan D, and I was thinking it was like D and D. So now I know. I found out last episode that this guy's name is Dan D. So
Dan D, that's my southern accent.
Yeah.
Dan D.
I was like,
Two syllables on the one syllable there. Dan D.
I just thought I'd tell you that. I thought that was funny. But yep, Zachary Jackson Brown Art. That's where you guys can find me.
Sweet. All
Sweet.
right. Well, we have one more in terms of Snyder versus Critics, Batman v Superman. So check it out with us. It might not go the way that you think, or maybe it'll go. I mean, Snyder's pretty far behind, but we'll see on that. Or at least enjoy what we have in store. So thank you very much, and see you next time.
Farewell, old friends. What do you?
Farewell, old friends. Until we meet again.